While playing hide and seek with my best brother, I hid for 3,000 years. During that time, he rose across the land and became invincible in that era, while I buried myself even deeper in the shadows, because after crossing into this world, I gained immortality, but I could never become invincible. My brother, on the other hand, became invincible, but he could not live forever. If he ever learned my secret, I didn't even dare imagine what the consequences would be. I thought I had covered everything perfectly, without leaving a single flaw, until 6,000 years later, when my brother Kang Yao suddenly remembered me. His wife Su Qingyan did not have much life left, and when people approach death, they always start looking back on the past. Yao, almost everyone from our generation is dead by now. Only one person disappeared long ago while we were all still here. What kind of ending did he meet? You mean Ling Xuan? When Kang Yao mentioned me, his expression looked unchanged, but between his brows there was still a trace of the sharp spirit he once carried. Back then, he and I used to boil wine and talk about the past and present, bragging wildly that we would become invincible and attain eternal life. Even now, he was still competing with me, even if he wasn't sure whether I was still alive or not. After all, I had once been one of the people most favored to become an emperor, and yet I had vanished for no clear reason. You two were best brothers. Whether he's dead or alive, you never tried to find out. He disappeared on his own. He should have lived for a long time. He may even still be alive right now. That was the intuition Emperor Kang Yao had managed to grasp. He felt that after I disappeared, I hadn't died. At the very least, I had lived through a very long stretch of time. Then why has he never shown himself? If someone hides and refuses to come out, then naturally he's afraid of something. Kang Yao's tone was full of disdain, as if he had won some invisible contest against his old brother. Su Qingyan quickly understood. Back then, I had only been one final leap away from attaining the Emperor realm. The only things that could have made me afraid were either hidden taboo beings or Kang Yao after he became Emperor. But since Kang Yao had already become a great Emperor, those taboo creatures naturally wouldn't dare show themselves. He's afraid of you? Why? He must be hiding some secret that he doesn't want me to know. No matter what secret he has, I, Kang Yao, don't care in the slightest. I am enough by myself. As he said that, divine light burst from Kang Yao's eyes, and the aura of a supreme emperor spread outward, shaking the entire universe and startling all living beings. He had already reached the absolute peak of this world. If even he couldn't do something, then what difference would adding one more Ling Xuan make? So you really never tried to find him? Never, Kang Yao only smiled. Whatever kind of secret had once made me fear him so much, he truly did not care. He was the emperor of that era. He believed he could crush everything in existence. So that's how he saw it. What a petty way to judge a gentleman's heart. He really thought I'd been hiding in the void all this time because I was afraid of him. At that moment, in a starry sky unimaginably far away, I also felt the imperial might Kang Yao had released. I couldn't even be bothered to hide my disdain. What is he going crazy for now? So what if he's an emperor? He's still out here disturbing the public. In the blink of an eye, another 1,000 years passed. I was already close to 10,000 years old, and yet my life force was still surging with vitality. My lifespan stretched so far that I couldn't even see its end. Even an emperor could live only about 20,000 years at most, but I couldn't feel happy about this at all. This immortality was both a blessing and a curse. It stopped me from touching that supreme emperor realm. Even so, I never gave up on pursuing the path of invincibility. If immortality could not become invincible, then it still felt incomplete. But if one became invincible and still couldn't live forever, then that felt even more incomplete. So after spending 10,000 years, I finally perfected the core Great Tao that belonged to me alone, the Tao of Thunder. When it came purely to Great Tao, I would never lose to Kang Yao. The problem was that my Tao lacked the support of an emperor's origin, so it could not unleash its ultimate power. Fortunately, after years of trying, I finally discovered a method that could approach the power of an emperor. That method was to comprehend multiple Great Taos and let them support one another, letting each Tao become the source for the others. The problem was that every single Tao required an extremely long time to understand. For others, this method was impossible. For me, an immortal, it fit perfectly. At that moment, thin strands of lightning spilled from my body, and hidden within the thunder was the pulsing rhythm of life. This was the Tao of life origin that I was about to comprehend. And just then, a wave of sorrow suddenly spread across the entire universe. Kang Yao, are you finally about to die? You didn't even find a single immortal divine medicine? Were you really that useless? I looked up into the depths of the starry sky, completely unaware that a terrifying conspiracy was already unfolding in silence. At that time, within Kang Yao's holy land, he stood before more than a dozen great tombs. Those were the resting places of his old comrades and loved ones. Not long before, a new grave had been added there. It belonged to his beloved Su Qingyan. Rage lingered around Kang Yao. His lifespan had only a few hundred years left. What I did not know was that he had actually obtained an immortal divine medicine long ago, one that could let him live for another life. He simply hadn't used it yet. Will any fool really take the bait? Kang Yao looked deep into the starry sky, thinking about how to make the weakness of his final years look real enough. He wanted to use the moment when he appeared closest to death to lure out the great enemies who had always been watching him from the shadows. In this world, there were demons from beyond, an ancient supreme surviving in the darkness. They were all taboo beings who had abandoned the righteous path, and they had clashed with Kang Yao more than once. Those taboo creatures had hidden themselves extremely well. In that sense, they were very similar to Ling Xuan. If he really is some kind of taboo being, then his choice to avoid me makes perfect sense. I almost hope you are. If that's true, then maybe there will still be a chance for us to meet again, and when we do, I'll kill you myself. Several hundred more years passed. While I was comprehending the Tao of Life origin, another vast sorrow suddenly spread through the entire universe. Kang Yao, are you dying or not? I didn't believe Kang Yao would simply fall after a single life. If he truly had failed to find an immortal divine medicine, there was no way the commotion would be this simple. Was he trying to use this act to draw out his enemies? With acting that bad, what idiot would actually fall for it? That was what I was thinking, but the instant the thought crossed my mind, a heaven-shaking fluctuation erupted from beyond the universe itself, so powerful that the starry sky trembled from the impact. Wasn't everyone just saying Emperor Kang Yao had reached the end? Why does it suddenly feel like emperors are about to start fighting? Something happened beyond the domain. Are we in trouble? There were two sources of great calamity beyond the outer domain, the demon abyss and the soul mound. While the crowd was still lost in shock, layer after layer of dazzling heavenly steps suddenly descended from the highest point of the starry sky. What? The eternal heavenly ladder? Even a mythical forbidden zone like that has appeared in this age? Did Emperor Kang Yao really die at the end of this life? Even I couldn't help but stand up and leap toward the distant starry sky, curious to see what state Kang Yao was truly in. Could it be that after this era ended, I would be the only one left? Just when I thought things were about to become real, the heaven-shaking fluctuations from the soul mound began to fade, and the eternal heavenly ladder slowly disappeared as well. Before long, the entire universe returned to calm. The world had panicked for nothing. Seeing that, I naturally understood. Kang Yao was not going to die in this life. Those taboo beings had already seen through his true condition. Still, I had to admit that Kang Yao had managed to trick something. I just didn't know which forbidden creature had been watching him. The soul mound and the eternal heavenly ladder did look pretty imposing, though. Maybe I should prepare some proper dramatic entrance for myself in the future, too. I sat back down and muttered to myself. Before long, the sorrow that filled heaven and earth was wiped away. Kang Yao had rebuilt his life destiny and stepped into another life. I couldn't be bothered to pay any more attention and continued comprehending the great Tao. But I still underestimated him. The moment Kang Yao restored his imperial might, he immediately began settling accounts with the eternal heavenly ladder and the soul mound. He took one step to the highest point of the starry sky and hurled out the Kangji spear. In an instant, imperial power exploded. Right before the stunned eyes of the entire world, he directly forced the eternal heavenly ladder into the open. Huge sections of its heavenly steps shattered apart, breaking into fragments of light that scattered into the depths of space. Everyone was shaken to the core. So what if countless taboo beings lurked in darkness? They still feared the reigning emperor and still chose to hide from him. As expected of an emperor, even I couldn't help giving him a small word of praise. Kang Yao and I were not walking the same road. In the realm of taboo existence, those who walked the same path were still emperors. Those who did not were mortal enemies. In the end, a furious and terrifying creature fell out of deep space with the supreme imperial weapon, the Kangji spear, still stabbed through its body. Right after that, Kang Yao rushed out of the great universe itself and stepped onto the soul mound. No one knew how that battle ended. In the end, he returned to the universe, but ordinary beings could not even look directly at an emperor. Naturally, they had no way of knowing how badly he was injured, nor could they learn the results of the battle. In the blink of an eye, another 8,000 years passed. I was now 18,000 years old, and I had already pushed the Tao of Life origin to its absolute limit. I casually summoned a bolt of lightning, using the Tao of Life origin as its Tao source, and the power it released rose by an entire level. It was far stronger than it had been 8,000 years earlier. This path works. No matter what era I live in, as long as I am not facing an emperor, I am confident I can crush everything in my way. At this point, calling me a taboo existence would not be excessive. And during those 8,000 years, Kang Yao had not exactly stayed quiet either. Just from what I personally sensed, he had broken into 3 mythical forbidden zones, and deep in the starry sky, he had captured taboo beings more than once. It always felt like he was busy with something. but over the last 1 or 2 thousand years, he seemed to calm down and stopped displaying his status before the world. I didn't pay too much attention. I stayed immersed in my own cultivation. What I never could have expected was that several hundred years later, this era would end without any warning at all. The great Tao between heaven and earth suddenly became unsealed, and all laws of the world spread open once again. That meant Emperor Kang Yao of that era had disappeared. No longer was there anyone suppressing the 10,000 Taos of heaven and earth. The shackles had opened, allowing the world to cross tribulation, prove the Tao, and give birth to a new emperor. But I sensed something was wrong. The sorrowful fluctuations transmitted by heaven and earth were not very strong. That made me think of an even more serious possibility. Kang Yao, did you also cut yourself down and become a taboo being? Most taboo beings hiding in darkness were once invincible experts who had already succeeded on the righteous path. They cut themselves down, withdrew from the Supreme Emperor realm, and then sealed themselves within Divine Source to survive in the world. They did all of this while waiting for the mythical land to appear, hoping to obtain eternal life. The problem was that no one knew whether the mythical land truly existed or how long it would take to appear. As endless years passed, the universe itself had long since stopped being able to support so many taboo beings. But as I frowned and thought more deeply, another possibility came to mind. Or perhaps Kang Yao had cut himself down and willingly become a Guardian Supreme, protecting the Tao of this world. Guardian Supremes were also taboo beings, but they sealed themselves away only so that when great calamity descended upon the universe, they could emerge once more and fight against disaster. That was taboo used to oppose taboo. While I was still thinking about Kang Yao, a massive palm that covered the starry sky suddenly appeared and slammed down, turning Kang Yao's holy land into ruins. The world was horrified and furious. Had the moment Emperor Kang Yao vanished already become the moment taboo beings began settling old scores? But I immediately noticed something was wrong. That holy land had been destroyed without offering the slightest resistance. It was clearly nothing more than an empty shell. Before vanishing, Kang Yao had already hidden the true holy land away from the world, and that attack from the taboo being was merely a test. What choice did you make in the end? Or did you really die? I looked into the sky, but I still couldn't determine Kang Yao's true situation. Then, all of a sudden, terrifying taboo fluctuations surged throughout the entire universe. With the suppression of the reigning emperor gone, taboo beings began moving freely through the world once more. And what I absolutely never expected was that I was about to meet one of them. A faint streak of light suddenly passed before my eyes. It looked ordinary at first, but I caught a trace of extraordinary opportunity within it and immediately gave chase. But the moment I saw what was inside that stream of light, my expression changed. Inside it was a strange, spider-like flower. 3 wondrous blossoms grew from 3 separate branches, and with just a single glance, one could sense immortal essence flowing from within it. It was the Samsara Divine Flower, an immortal divine medicine, a supreme treasure that even invincible beings hunted for. Before I could make a move, something unexpected happened. The Samsara Divine Flower suddenly changed direction and flew straight toward me. At once, I thought of the strangest trait possessed by immortal divine medicines. Across all generations, even invincible experts could at most catch one. Very few had ever obtained 2. It was less like invincible beings found these medicines, and more like the medicines chose their own masters. They seemed to deliberately avoid gathering on the same person. Just when I thought the Samsara Divine Flower was about to pledge itself to me, it suddenly made a sharp turn and flew away again. What does that mean? You don't like me? I immediately chased after it and didn't bother restraining myself too much. After all, the reigning emperor had already vanished. Still, I did not use the Tao of Thunder. I only used the Tao of Life Origin. My thunder arts had once made quite a name for themselves in the world, and it would have been too easy for someone to recognize my true identity. When I got close enough, I reached out and grabbed. A vast fluctuation instantly spread over the Samsara Divine Flower, but just when I was about to touch it, it suddenly slipped sideways, transformed into an even brighter streak of light, and shot away again. And what shocked me even more came right after that. There was actually a passerby moving through that region of space who also spotted the Samsara Divine Flower and attacked to seize it as well. The 2 taboo-level powers collided and instantly stirred up enormous waves through the starry sky. The terrifying disturbance frightened the surrounding life forms so badly that it felt as if true Emperor-level figures had begun clashing. A taboo being. I stared into that patch of darkness in the distant starry sky, my expression turning solemn. The clouds and mist around the other figure grew darker and darker, making it impossible to see what was hidden within. This strange power from the Tao of Life Origin. Who exactly are you? That taboo being couldn't see through me either. So, naturally, he did not make another reckless move. Meanwhile, the Samsara Divine Flower took the opportunity to slip away. Xuanhuang Jade Crown, which ancient supreme is this? At that moment, my gaze pierced through the darkness and landed on the place where that taboo being stood. the two of us sized each other up. In the end, I was the first to leave, and he had no desire to keep entangling with me either, so he also departed quickly. When 10,000 years had passed since Emperor Kang Yao vanished, I had already reached 28,000 years of age. The shackles of heaven and earth had long since been completely released. But now, the fortune of the universe had dimmed, heavenly geniuses had withered away, and there wasn't even a single powerhouse left who could attempt to prove the Tao. As for me, I had already cultivated my third great Tao, the Tao of hidden extinction, to a flawless state. With the combination of my three Taos, each serving as the source of the others, I had climbed another step higher than I stood 10,000 years ago. The aura I now revealed was already enough to confront those taboo beings head-on. I thought I would be able to keep developing in peace, but more than 1,000 years later, I was dragged into trouble by a brother and sister and forced to exchange a palm strike with a taboo being. What I didn't expect even more was that one of those two siblings would one day prove the Tao and become a great emperor. On that day, the brother and sister relied on a unique method to break into a land of fortune, but they had no idea that it was actually the lair of a taboo being. That taboo being was buried in an ancient slumber stretching across the ages, and only after the siblings stole a divine relic from that place did it finally awaken. In the next instant, a taboo divine might filled with towering rage erupted outward. Yet the brother and sister had powerful destinies and astonishing aura, and they actually carried life-saving emperor talismans on them. Wrapped in the force of those talismans, they were just about to cross dozens of star fields and escape, but they were struck down in mid-flight by a terrifying blow from that taboo being. Then another palm came crashing down after them. What that being did not know was that in the star field where that palm was descending, I happened to be comprehending a crucial Tao opportunity connected to the ancient emperor Xuanlu. At the same time, I also saw the true source of this disaster. It was a man and a woman, both radiating dense imperial aura. They clearly possessed emperor-level treasures. That was the only reason they managed to survive a strike from the ancient emperor Xuanlu. After all, beneath the taboo realm, all were ants. Other than a great emperor, there was no one in this world who could withstand such power. What was even more unexpected was that those two actually had a second emperor-level treasure as well. In a single instant, they escaped across several star fields, making it impossible for the ancient emperor Xuanlu to keep tracking them. And as for the terrifying palm strike that Xuanlu ancient emperor had sent crashing down on this region, I obviously could have dodged it. But why should I dodge? With that thought, I raised my hand and pushed forward. Two overwhelming taboo-level powers collided, setting off a violent storm in the starry sky and making beings in every direction tremble in fear. This time, I did not gain the slightest advantage, but the strike from Xuanlu ancient emperor was still deflected by me. The rage of having his divine relic stolen by those little thieves drifted deep into the starry sky. For now, he could only swallow that huge loss. As long as his true body remained hidden and did not act in person, there was little he could do to track down those two thieves. Once everything settled down, I couldn't help turning my head to look in the direction they had fled. I had only taken a casual glance just now, but even that was enough for me to tell that the two of them were top-tier Heaven's Chosen. Now that the fortune of the universe was turning once more and more geniuses were appearing without end. I estimated that a new great emperor would emerge very soon, and once the reigning emperor of the era appeared, I would have to hide myself carefully all over again. Otherwise, if the new emperor locked onto me and came chasing after me like a maniac, I wouldn't even have a chance to run. The other taboo beings were no different. But at that moment, I had no idea that my entanglement with that brother and sister had only just begun. Did another taboo existence just appear again? This time, we've really stirred up a massive karma. If we try to cross tribulation and prove the Tao in the future, I'm afraid taboo beings may interfere. Then, are we still going treasure hunting or not? The treasure-seeking divine incense still has a small section left to burn. Who knows? We might still find one or two more divine relics. Even those great emperors of the past might not have found this many divine objects before they died. The karmic burden of divine relics is too great. We may not be able to bear too many of them. Chu Yaoguang was the more rational one. If they had not accidentally obtained 7 emperor talismans earlier, the two of them would have died a long time ago. But they still had 5 emperor talismans left, so how could they possibly be willing to stop now? Because of that, Chu Yaoguang had no intention of giving up. She planned to first recover from her injuries and then fully digest the opportunities and good fortune brought by the divine relics. A little more than 100 years later, I crossed the starry sky at full speed and returned to one of my 3 hidden lairs. Over the years, I had built 3 lands of fortune, and the treasures I had gathered over tens of thousands of years were distributed evenly among them. But there was one lair that I valued above the others. Inside it, I had planted my one true divine object, the 7-colored bamboo. It could grow endlessly and be harvested endlessly. I had planned to let it grow for another several tens of thousands of years before cutting it down and using it properly. In the blink of an eye, I turned 30,000 years old. The Tao of Thunder, the Tao of Life Origin, and the Tao of Hidden Extinction had all reached completion. I began comprehending my fourth great Tao, and chose the overbearing Tao of Severing and Slaughter. My current strength was enough for me to roam the universe unhindered. I could perfectly disguise myself as a competitive supreme. And in my estimation, if I could complete 6 great Taos, I should possess a certain degree of imperial might. If I reached 8, then the gap between me and a true emperor probably would not be very large. And if I ever reached 10, then saying I was an emperor might not even be wrong. Several decades later, I once again stepped into the starry sky to wander, comprehend the Tao, and temper my understanding through the mortal world. But while I was traveling through the red dust in search of enlightenment, I suddenly sensed that my lair had been visited. That day, guided by the treasure-seeking divine incense, the brother and sister arrived at an extremely hidden land of fortune. But the instant they stepped inside, the scene before them left them stunned. The place was filled with dense taboo aura. Chu Jinhong had never expected that the divine relic hunt they had prepared for over several hundred years would lead them into yet another taboo land. She was just about to activate an emperor talisman and run when Chu Yaoguang stopped her. Wait, there may not be a taboo being here. Or maybe it hasn't noticed us yet. The treasure-seeking divine incense can't be lit again once it's burned through. We can't leave empty-handed. Chu Yaoguang was not afraid of taking risks and still wanted to seize the divine relic hidden here. And after surviving the Xuanlu ancient emperor, she no longer feared taboo beings as much as before. As for provoking a taboo existence and having to repay some massive karmic debt in the future, she didn't really care anymore. They had already offended one of them. Offending one more didn't seem like it could make things that much worse. Chu Jinhong did not argue with her sister. After that, the two of them used their unique methods to gradually explore deeper into the lair. When they found that none of the taboo arrangements had been triggered, they slowly relaxed and began to think that perhaps there was no taboo being here at all, or that the taboo being was still asleep. Before long, they found the 7-colored bamboo. Both siblings instantly lit up with excitement. They knew this was the divine object the treasure-seeking divine incense had been guiding them toward. But the moment they touched the 7-colored bamboo, I immediately sensed it from a distant region of the starry sky. I had nourished the bamboo with my own aura for years, and a connection had long since formed between it and me. But what shocked me even more was this. I had clearly left a massive number of taboo-level measures throughout my lair, yet I only sensed the intrusion after the 7-colored bamboo was touched. Had a supreme come calling, or had they stumbled upon some taboo great Tao method? I immediately activated the Tao of Life Origin and rushed back toward my lair at unimaginable speed. At the same time, I unleashed taboo divine might with full force, crossed an endless distance through the starry sky, and sent a clone of myself directly descending over the lair. The moment I arrived, I recognized that brother and sister at once. Only then did I finally understand why they had provoked the Xuanlu ancient emperor back then. Inside my lair, a large portion of my spirit treasures had already been swept clean. Even the 7-colored bamboo was being cut from the root upward with a divine weapon in their hands. If they had been able to uproot it completely, they probably would have taken the whole thing long ago. Killing intent surged inside me. I unleashed taboo divine might and fiercely clenched down toward the two of them. The brother and sister were terrified. They felt an overwhelming horror that they simply could not resist. Without the slightest hesitation, they activated one of their emperor talismans. A layer of imperial brilliance suddenly wrapped around them. In the instant before I crushed them, the two of them vanished from where they stood, and at the same time, they took almost the entire 7-colored bamboo with them. Only one tiny, pitiful piece of root was left sticking out of the ground. In the next moment, I returned to the lair at taboo speed, but it was already too late. I had still been too far away. That long-distance strike had done no more than barely graze the two siblings. It wasn't enough to keep them there. As I looked at the condition of the lair, especially that little stump of the 7-colored bamboo still left in the ground, a sharp, killing intent appeared in my eyes. I had once walked the road of competing for invincibility under the stars. I had slaughtered plenty in the starry sky. I had never been some merciful saint. I instantly erupted with my power at its absolute limit, and quickly sensed the location of the 7-colored bamboo. Without a moment of hesitation, I chased after them, but those two little thieves were extremely fast. They immediately changed direction, and the connection I felt through the bamboo grew weaker and weaker. They had already realized that I could sense the bamboo's location, and they clearly had some method to conceal it. In the end, the 7-colored bamboo was completely cut off from my perception. I could only stop and stare darkly into the vast, deep sky before me. At my current realm, I still could not do anything to those two. Even the 7-colored bamboo had been stolen away. Those juniors truly deserved to be called peerless heaven's chosen, beings born with immense destiny and fate. But for them to be this bold, were they really not afraid of being settled with accounts one day when they tried to cross tribulation and prove the Tao? I would not let this matter end so easily. Even if those two eventually proved the Tao and became great emperors, I would still make them repay this karmic debt. I did not like interfering with those who sought to prove the Tao and ascend as emperors, but I would still act according to my own heart. After all, only a flawless state of mind could keep one moving forward without hesitation. 14 years later, I once again sensed the location of the seven-colored bamboo. Without hesitation, I chased after it. I had finally managed to catch the trail of those two little thieves, but in the end, they still had another emperor-level treasure and escaped yet again. My taboo aura still lingered on the seven-colored bamboo. Even if those two thieves possessed some unusual methods, it would still be difficult for them to erase my imprint in a short time. At that moment, somewhere in the starry sky, the brother and sister hid deep within a remote region, both covered in wounds. Sis, I'm sorry. I lost control for a second and exposed the seven-colored bamboo's aura. But why is this Supreme different from the Xuanlu ancient emperor? Why is he still chasing us? Doesn't he need to sleep? Staying awake should consume his life force. This taboo Supreme really is unusual. If he's maintaining an awakened state, then he's probably planning something. Beings at that level aren't easy to guess. The only good news is that a mere seven-colored bamboo clearly wasn't enough to force his true body to appear. Otherwise, we would never have escaped. Next, we need to focus on erasing the aura he left on the bamboo. Right then, Chu Jinhong suddenly thought of something and spoke up. Sis, Song Jingming told us before that he discovered a taboo being.